Chenkang, 228 AD. A Wei general turns on his horse, pulls a hidden weapon from his cloak, and hurls it. A metal head on a chain strikes a Shu general in the back at over 100 miles an hour. He falls across his saddle, vomiting blood. Zhuge Liang's campaign collapses in that moment. The weapon was the Meteor Hammer, and it rewrote what armor could stop. In the Chinese world, from the Han through the Song, armor was not optional. Lamellar plates, iron helmets, layered hide and steel. The professional soldier of Imperial China was a walking fortress, and the standard weapons of his time were built to fight other fortresses. Imagine yourself as a soldier in a Song Imperial Guard unit. The enemy rides toward you in lamellar armor, every scale overlapping the next, with an iron helmet that covers everything down to the eyes. You draw your dao, the curved single-edged saber that has been the backbone of Chinese infantry for centuries, and you cut at his shoulder, but the blade slides off the plates. You try the neck, and the collar guard catches the swing. You strike at the head, and the helmet rings while your wrist takes the shock. The man does not fall. You can use a spear, but a spear breaks after the first thrust into lamellar. You can use the chui, the hammer-headed mace on a wooden shaft, and it works, but only if you can close to arm's length without being killed first. This was the real problem armored warfare created. The closer you came, the more your enemy's armor mattered. The farther you stayed, the weaker your strike. Every standard weapon forced a trade between range and impact. And there was one weapon in the Chinese arsenal that refused the trade. The Meteor Hammer was probably not a Chinese invention. The earliest weighted cord weapons in Asia did not appear in Chinese military manuals. They appeared on the steppe, in the hands of horse nomads who needed a tool they could swing from the saddle without dropping a spear. The Khazars used something similar, and so did medieval Russians. South American bolas work on the same principle a continent away, which tells you the idea is obvious to anyone with a horse and a rope. Chinese sources show weighted rope weapons from the Han period, 2,000 years ago, though the evidence from that time is thin. By the Three Kingdoms era, the weapon has a clear name and a clear identity. Liuxing Chui, the Meteor Hammer. A metal head, sometimes melon-shaped, sometimes spiked, attached to a chain 3 to 5 meters long. But here is what made this weapon unusual in the Chinese arsenal. It was never standard issue. A Han, Tang, or Song army marched out with swords, spears, bows, and crossbows in vast numbers. The Meteor Hammer was carried by individuals, by guards, by generals who wanted something nobody saw coming. It was concealable. A man could wear one folded under his cloak or strapped beneath his saddle, and an enemy who saw only the sword at his hip would not know the second weapon existed until it was already moving through the air. And in 228 AD, on a battlefield in northwest China, one of those concealed weapons broke an entire campaign. Chenkang, autumn of 228. Zhuge Liang, regent of Shu and one of the most famous strategists in Chinese history, was leading his second northern expedition against Wei. The city of Chenkang stood on the road he needed, defended by 1,000 men under a commander named Hao Zhao. Wei sent a relief force. At its head rode a general named Wang Shuang from Didao in Longxi. According to the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, compiled by Luo Guanzhong from older chronicles, Wang Shuang carried a sword weighing 30 kilograms and a bow that took more than 100 kilograms of pull. Concealed beneath his armor, he carried 3 meteor hammers. Shu sent its first wave to stop him. 6,000 troops advanced under 2 generals, Xie Xiong and Gong Qi. Wang Shuang killed Xie Xiong in one exchange. Gong Qi came next, and after 2 or 3 exchanges, he was also dead. The shoe line broke and fell back. A second wave came up. Generals Zhang Ni, Liao Hua, and Wang Ping advanced. Zhang Ni rode out first and engaged Wang Shuang, and this time the Wei general had found a fighter who matched his sword. The bouts ran long. Wang Shuang understood that the contest would not end the way the previous two had, so he turned his horse and flee. Zhang Ni, sensing victory, gave chase. As they rode, Wang Shuang reached beneath his armor and pulled out one of the 3 meteor hammers, letting the chain extend behind his horse and building speed in a wide arc. Then he twisted in the saddle and threw. The metal head crossed the gap and struck Zhang Ni square in the back. He fell forward across his saddle and could not raise himself. Blood came up from his throat. Internal hemorrhage from a single blunt impact transmitted straight through armor. Wang Shuang wheeled around and charged. The Shu second wave, watching their leading general slumped over his horse, lost formation and scattered. Zhuge Liang, hearing the report, called off further attacks on Chenkang. The second northern expedition was over. And now the question that makes this story worth telling. How did a metal ball on a chain knock an armored general off his horse with internal injuries that a 30-kilogram sword could not have produced? The answer is in the geometry of a swung weight. A sword cuts because of the edge. A spear pierces because of the point. Both weapons concentrate human muscle along a small contact area, which works against flesh and fails against rigid armor. The plates spread the force, the blade slides off, and most of the strike's energy is wasted into the metal. The Meteor Hammer works on different physics. When the wielder swings the chain in a circle, every meter from his hand to the metal head multiplies the speed of the head. This is the same principle as a sling, a trebuchet, or the tip of a whip. The arm moves at maybe 15 meters per second. By the time that motion reaches the end of a 4-meter chain, the head is traveling at over 100 miles per hour, as modern practitioners measure it. Kinetic energy rises with the square of velocity. A meteor hammer head weighing 1 kilogram, moving at 50 meters per second, arrives with the energy of more than 2 pistol bullets, concentrated in a steel mass roughly the size of a fist. And now the part that matters against armor. A bullet pierces through penetration. A sword cuts through slicing. A hammer on a chain does neither. It delivers blunt force, and when blunt force meets rigid armor, the armor does its job perfectly. The plate does not break. The helmet does not yield. It transfers every joule of the impact straight through itself into the body underneath. This is why Zhang Ni did not have a cut or a puncture. He had internal bleeding from a back struck so hard that the armor became part of the injury rather than a defense against it. The lamellar plates spread the impact across his ribs and spine simultaneously, which made it worse, not better. The Wu Beiji, the 17th century military encyclopedia compiled by Mao Yuanyi, devotes specific sections to the Meteor Hammer for exactly this reason. It documents techniques for whipping the chain around an enemy's shield to deliver a strike from behind cover. A shield stops a sword. A shield does not stop a chain that bends around it. But the Meteor Hammer was not magic. The same chain that bent around a shield could bend around its own user, and a wrong angle of release sent the head back to the thrower's face. The weapon was useless in tight formations because the swing demanded open space. And against an unarmored opponent who could simply stay back, the Meteor Hammer offered nothing a bow did not offer better. The Meteor Hammer was never the best weapon in the Chinese arsenal. It was the perfect weapon for one moment, as long as that moment existed. That moment ended when the rules of war stopped favoring armor. The Ming Dynasty kept the Meteor Hammer in its manuals. The Qing Dynasty inherited the manuals. But by the time Qing armies were reorganizing around matchlock muskets and standardized formations, the wars that needed a concealed armor breaker were finished. A musket killed armored men and unarmored men at the same range and through the same defense. The trade between range and impact, the trade the Meteor Hammer had refused, no longer existed. The weapon survived, but the army did not need it. It moved into the schools, into the martial traditions of Shaolin and the traveling fighters of late imperial China, into wushu demonstrations and stage performance. It became a thing of skill rather than a thing of war. Today, the Meteor Hammer lives in museums, in films, and in the slow choreography of competition wushu. You can find Wang Shuang's name in Chinese chronicles and his story in Luo Guanzhong's novel. You can find the Wu Beiji diagrams in any serious library. A weapon belongs to the war it was built for. Wang Shuang carried 3 meteor hammers into a war that ended 17 centuries ago. The weapon outlived that war and then outlived itself.